Hello, this is how to publish KDE applications to the F-Droid App Store as a KDE developer. So F-Droid is an alternative app store for the Android operating system. It supports the major architectures of the Android operating system. There's a65e0477, there's AMD 64 and AMD 32-bit. What we want is that a application from the KDE community that's not part of this F-Droid repository, that we add it to this F-Droid repository. In this example, we're using Kirigami Gallery, which is a simple application that is buildable for Android, that is from the KDE community, and showcases a very important KDE library for Android, which is Kirigami. I have built Kirigami Gallery using KDE Builder. This would be the very first step. Make sure that the Kirigami Gallery builds correctly on Linux using KDE-Builder. As you can see, it has very few dependencies, ECM, extra CMake modules. Most KDE applications depend on this KDE framework. And then Kirigami, which is a library that sits on top of Qt Quick Controls 2, that sits on top of QML Qt Quick. And then there's another KDE framework, K-item models. And finally, the application itself, Kirigami-Gallery. Next up, once we see that we can build using KDE Builder, would be to build using KDE Craft on Linux. Let's see how that works. I already have KDE Craft for Linux installed. Let's see how we use KDE Craft. On Google, I searched KDE Wiki Craft. Goes to the correct page, the KDE Craft wiki page. Let's see how we use the Linux operating system. So I have installed KDE Craft. Now we need to enter the KDE Craft environment in a new terminal tab. And we want to build, let's first search for the package. So Kirigami Gallery. It's available, and this is its full path, kd/application/kirigami-gallery. It will build by default the latest release, which is 25.04.3. Let's build it. Craft space Kirigami-gallery. Says that the application has already been built, is up to date, nothing to do. While we build the application, let's also make sure that the applications run correctly. So the application runs the version that we have built using KDE Builder. Let's see the version that we have built using KDE Craft. So that would be ~craft root/bin/kirigami gallery with a 2. And it works kind of correctly. It's not using the correct environment, probably, environment variables. That's why it's using the wrong fonts and the wrong application icon. Next up would be to use KDE Craft for Android. We have already set up KDE Craft for Android. This requires a Linux container. I have used Podman. I'm entering the KDE Craft environment. Building is the same thing, so craft space kirigami minus gallery. Then you want to package kirigami gallery, so craft space minus minus package space kirigami minus gallery. And then you follow the signing steps. Currently, the steps required in order to build KDE applications for Android and sign them and run them inside W-Droid, which is an Android emulator for AMD 6465, AMD 68_65, are present in my wiki, which is nmariusp.github.io. Advanced, and then Android. These are the exact instructions. This page will become outdated in time, but for right now, these instructions are correct. So we're starting the Podman. We're installing KDE Craft for Android. We're entering the environment. We're building Kirigami Gallery. We're creating a package of Kirigami Gallery. Then we're generating a pair of public-private keys for signing if we don't yet have one. And then we're using two applications executables from the Android SDK. One is called Zipalign, the second is called APK Signer. Using these two commands, we're using this digital signature in order to sign this APK. So Kirigami Gallery, then the CPU architecture .signed.apk, which we're going to test inside W-Droid. This is the way I do it. So I install Weston, I install W-Droid, I start Weston. Inside of Weston, I start W-Droid. And then from outside Weston, I'm pushing this application Kirigami to gallery sign.apk towards W-Droid. These are the correct instructions, they do work. I have a previous video on how to follow these instructions, but we could see if the instructions still work correctly. So let's follow the instructions. So this will fail because the directory already exists. We need to start Podman. We don't need to download KDE Craft and set it up. We already did that. We're entering the Craft environment. Let's see if building Kirigami Gallery was already done previously. Right now, we're in the process of upgrading the Qt version that's inside KDE Craft, so building might fail. I'm trying one more time. Let's see if we do a clean reinstall of the KDE Craft for Android, things will work. Again, what we're doing right now is not part of this tutorial. I already have a YouTube screen recording for how to follow these steps. What we're interested in is once we have the signed Kirigami Gallery APK, what now? How can we actually publish this APK to the KDE F-Droid repository? There are two repositories. There's a nightly one, and then there's a release one. The progression is to publish the APK towards the nightly build repository, and once a release Git branch is created, then you will be able to publish to the KDE Android release builds repository. But let's follow the tutorial. Maybe everything works if we just reinstall KDE Craft for Android. Okay. I have created a directory. I'm inside the container. The directory on the host machine is ~craft-kd.android, and that is mapped via volumes inside the Android container as ~/craft_root. ~/craft_root is the default directory for KDE Craft, which is a build framework from the KDE community. I want x86_64, the exact same architecture for Android APKs as for the host operating system, so 3. Yes. It's a pretty contained, self-contained build framework. It downloads all of the things it needs. Unarchivers, Pythons, Python modules, Qt modules, KDE frameworks, everything. It doesn't really install packages from the host operating system. Okay, and now installation of KDE Craft has finished. It's a special installation of KDE Craft, one for Android operating system x86_64, so for AMD 64. We're entering the Craft environment, and then we do what we did previously, which is craft the Kirigami -gallery application. This downloads a ton of libraries, image codec libraries, compression libraries, Qt modules, Qt SVG, Qt declarative, many Python 3 modules, PyYAML, many KDE frameworks, and we still have this issue. But this is a temporary issue. It's about probably the KDE Craft cache. It will be fixed in the next days. So just consider that we have the application where we want it, which is in the temporary directory. In here. Let's see F-Droid running. So I'm on the operating system Ubuntu 25.04. I have installed Weston. We could just run these command lines. If you press Ctrl+Shift+V twice, or if you paste twice, it will put these terminal color codes, rendering the command line not runnable. Okay. Says that Weston is already up to date. We have installed certificates and curl. I have installed F-Droid, the recommended way for Ubuntu, which will add a deb apt remote repository. So let's see how that looks like. sources list D, waydroid.list. This file is being created when you run sudo bash. This is how it looks like, as you would expect. A deb line, a URL, Ubuntu version, and the type of repository. In this case, just me. At this point, we can start Weston. Okay, so Weston is a Wayland compositor. Does not matter if you're running a KDE Plasma 6 X11 session or a Wayland session. In my case, I'm running the X11 session. Or if you're running any other X11 desktop environment, window manager, or Wayland compositor, you can just start Weston, even inside the Weston compositor. Then you can resize the Weston window as wanted. I usually want the Weston window to take half of my screen, this part. And then inside we'll run the waydroid commands. First of all, just to be sure, we're going to stop the waydroid container, sudo waydroid container stop. Usually this thing does not do anything because the container has stopped when I have closed waydroid last time, or if I have restarted the computer. Copy paste of text does not work from outside Weston to inside Weston, so you'll need to write the command line by hand. Waydroid show full UI. Waydroid container stop. I'm going to also run waydroid session stop. And now I'm starting waydroid show full UI. I don't really have an explanation. How could the container be stopped, but the session started? There's something happening there. Okay, so this is Android running natively using the same CPU architecture as my host operating system, which is they both use AMD 64. Android can only run AMD 64 applications. I have installed the F-Droid App Store. There's multiple ways of doing it. A simple way is to download the APK file, and then you use the waydroid command line to push this APK towards the waydroid machine. Are the instructions like this. So waydroid app install, and the application name is uppercase F minus droid with the uppercase D .apk. Okay, you have the F-Droid store. Using KDE Craft for Android, you manage to build Kirigami Gallery and push it to the waydroid instance, where you can test the application, make sure that it works correctly. There's Google applications inside this Android operating system. So there will be Google Play Protect, which will notify that the Kirigami Gallery application that we're installing using waydroid app install from outside waydroid was not seen before by the Android operating system. So it's just a succession of two message boxes, and you select to have the application inspected by Google Play Protect. The application should look like this. Okay, at this point, you have the F-Droid App Store installed, this application. You have Kirigami Gallery installed from KDE for Android. Let's uninstall the application. How do we do that? We can uninstall the application because it's an Android application, or we can use the F-Droid app command line to uninstall it, or we could uninstall it from inside F-Droid after we install it from F-Droid. I have searched for F-Droid on Google. It goes automatically to the docs.wdroid.id/usage/ the install instructions. The command line is the one that we would expect, F-Droid app. Let's see it in action. F-Droid app --help. With this command line, we could install the signed APK, but we can also list the installed applications. Let's filter by Kirigami. And then we can remove expects just the package name of an app to remove, which I guess is this string. Let's see that the application has been uninstalled and it's no longer available in the list with all the applications. On Google, I have searched KDE Wiki Android, goes to the correct place, community.kde.org/Android. In here it says that we can publish applications to the F-Droid repositories. One of the ways to build the recommended one is using Linux containers. This is how to sign the application. And next page would be how to package and publish the application. Let's see how this was done for the application Kirigami Gallery. In a new web browser, we search for the apps.kde.org/Kirigami Gallery. This is the home page of the application. In here, we can browse the source code, goes to the GitLab project, invent.kde.org/sdk/kirigami-gallery. And we need to look at the source code. So it says that there should be a top-level file named .gitlab-ci.yml, this guy. In there should be a /GitLab templates /craft Android Qt 6 APKs .yml. This part is done. And when a build is happening, we will see that this YML creates a ton of jobs inside the pipelines that are related to merge requests. So let's see if Let's go to the list of merge requests. Let's see which merge request does have the pipelines running. Okay, let's look at the list of pipelines. So there's validation for some JSON files and building for Android Qt 6.9. Let's look at this pipeline, what it does. So it's Git cloning some repositories, has access to the Kirigami gallery source code. It's preparing the dependencies, Kirigami kitem models ECM. And then it's just building using CMake. I'm not sure how all of this works. Indeed, a Android toolchain needs to exist, so it's either a virtual machine or a Linux container, such as Docker, with one of the possible Android toolchains. I'm not sure for which. Yeah, for x86-64 makes sense for the CPU architecture. And then in there, it's running the simplest build steps possible, similar to the way you would build Kirigami Gallery for Linux, AMD64. So it's running the CMake configure step. Then it's running CMake build, which is running Ninja. And then it's installing, which is CMake install, which is Ninja install. And that's it. So this is the fastest way to make sure that the source code of this Git repository, Kirigami-gallery, builds correctly. But this is not enough. We actually want to run KDE Craft for various Android architectures, ARM32, ARM64, x86-64. And we also want to generate APKs, and we also want to sign the APKs, and we want everything to be available as a GitLab CI build artifact that can be downloaded. Okay, so next, so this was the steps: the validate, build, and now the next step is deploy. And deploy is doing what we wanted. So different KDE Craft for Android for different CPU architectures. Let's look at the x86-64 one. Let's see what it's doing. So it's using a Linux container, and in there it's using another Git repository from the KDE community, which is called Craft Master. So Craft Master is a wrapper over Craft, knows how to run various Craft commands, knows how to set up various KDE Craft environments. So it's automating the KDE Craft KDE build framework. Let's see what it's doing. So it says Craft Master set up, then it's setting up Craft using the Craft Master command line executable. Very similar to what we did. when we wanted to build Kirigami-gallery for using KDE Craft for Android. It's installing dependencies for Kirigami-gallery. And then it's building, so this is Craftmaster Kirigami Gallery with various additional options. It's entering the craft environment, and then it's running the craft command line. So craft, no cache, options, src-dir, and Kirigami Gallery. It's installing all of the dependencies, but all of the dependencies are already installed, so all of the KDE frameworks, Qt modules, etc. It has built Kirigami Gallery, so it's not, the output is not verbose from KDE Craft. Then it's going to create the package. Let's see how that is done. Sign apk.py. Okay, it's signing and it's keeping the same name for the APK. There are no two different APK files, one signed and the other one not signed. The final name is going to be something like this: Kirigami to Gallery, the CPU architecture, APK, and then a version. Okay, and the signing will only happen if we do additional changes to the source code of Kirigami Gallery. Says that by default the APKs are not signed. If you want to sign them, you will need to edit this Git repository in van.k.org/sysadmin/ci utilities. There's a file in there, apk signer -projects.yaml. And in here, make sure that the relevant part exists for our application, which is Kirigami Gallery. So Kirigami Gallery, application ID, and there should be at least one release branch. And the release branch used to be 2504. Meanwhile, a new one appeared, which is 25.08. This way, when the GitLab CI job is running, we'll see that we have agreed that Kirigami-Gallery APK can be signed. So it will sign the APK. Let's see the build artifacts in here. You can download them. Let's look at the GitLab Git repository for Kirigami Gallery. At the merge requests, so a merge request will have GitLab CI jobs and actions happening before the merge and then after the merge. The list of GitLab CI jobs might be different before the actual merge and after the merge. Let's look at the GitLab CI jobs that happened after the merge. So there's a validation. builds on various operating systems, Windows, FreeBSD, SUSE, and Android with CMake. Then the stage deploy, what we saw previously, so craft Android x86-64, ARM64, ARM32. There's also building the Flatpak, and a final stage which is called publish, which will put the APKs on the F-Droid Android App Store. Which is exactly what you would expect. It takes the APK files for all of the architectures, ARM EABI x86-64. There's also a fastlane file. So metadata about the APKs, and uploads them to a HTTPS server that's part of the KDE community. The HTTPS server that we provide, the KDE community, is this one, https://cdn.kde.org/android/stable releases, F-Droid repo, etc. That's for the release builds. But we're not building from a release branch, we're building from the master branch, and that will write in here into the KDE Android nightly builds, another HTTPS URL that the KDE community provides, cdn.kde.org/android/nightly/fdroid. So we have edited the APK signer-projects.yaml, make sure that Kirigami gallery is there for at least one branch. And then it says that if you're creating a merge request, a CI pipeline, GitLab pipeline will be created. And if you're building from that release branch, the 3 craft Android GitLab CI builds jobs will also sign the APKs. They sign the APKs also if you're building from the master branch. APKs created on work branches and forks are never signed. Okay. And we saw the step for publishing to the F-Droid store. It says that once you have the GitLab CI jobs that have created the APK and have signed the APK, in this case for the master branch, it's a good idea to download from the merge request the build artifacts and test the signed APK. Let's do that. Back to where we were. The Kirigami gallery merge requests merged this one, where we saw that the publishing has passed. Let's see if we can still download this build artifact from 2 days ago. Were removed 18 hours ago. Okay, so while the build artifacts are still available, you should download, and in my case I'm going to test with Waydroid. Let's see if these other ones are still available. So deploy craft AMD64. Let's download the build artifacts. I have downloaded the build artifacts, artifacts.zip. Let's change to that directory. Let's unzip. And let's see what we have in here. There's a Fastlane file, a APK that's signed, and debug logs. Additional logs from KDE Craft for Android. So we're interested into this file, the Kirigami Gallery APK. Let's also see what's inside the Fastlane zip. So it's metadata about the APK, says that it's in these categories, Qt KDE development. There's a source code Git repository, some URLs for donation, licensing, and the website, correct. And then there's the screenshot images. This one. It's a screenshot created on Linux, and this is not an Android screenshot. There's also an icon. A plain text file with a single line with title, description, and the other description. So these three strings are called differently in upstream meta info, in the Android Fastlane, but it's kind of the same thing. So just a human readable title, name of the application, then a subtitle, so something very short that ends without a dot, a bit of details what the application does, and then detailed description of the applications, maybe with paragraphs, maybe with unordered lists. Okay, so we need to change to KDE CI packages. In here, there's a APK file, and we want to install this thing using F-Droid app. F-Droid app. Install. Just the path to the APK file. So it's relative to the current directory. Kirigami Gallery version CPU architecture APK. Let's see how it looks like in F-Droid. So we're inside Weston. The screen is locked. Click on the green rectangle, the green circle to unlock. The message box from Google Play Protect is shown. You need to press the button Scan App. Wait for it to finish and then install. Now you have the application Kirigami Gallery installed and available in the list with all applications. This list. And it runs correctly. Okay. We can also remove it. F-Droid app remove. We're not providing a file path, so not a string that ends with .apk. We're providing a Android app ID. Okay, so the application has disappeared from the list of all installed applications in Android. Which means that we have downloaded the build artifacts, we have proved that they are signed, because otherwise we would not be able to install the application APK on the Android machine. Google Play Protect would refuse to install a non-signed file, APK file. And then for this merge request, we can also see post merge request, the publishing to F-Droid that it was successful, which means that this being pushed to the master branch is going to write to the F-Droid repository nightly, which means that we can install the application inside Android. I already have F-Droid installed. Let's go to settings, repositories, and I have the default F-Droid repository to which I have added both KDE repositories. There's the release one, this one, KDE Android release builds, and KDE Android nightly builds. And I'm choosing which repositories to enable. I want to see just the nightly builds, which means I'm going to change the radio buttons such that only the KDE Android nightly builds repository is enabled. You will need to wait 1 minute for the package metadata to finish downloading and refreshing, such that F-Droid only shows applications from this repository, the nightly KDE one. And then you can go to the application F-Droid at the start of the application, where it presents all of the applications. Let's see if it's presenting immediately the Kirigami application gallery. Yes, it's here. If not, you can search. Let's see where the search is. So the search is this green magnifying glass button at the bottom right. In here we search for Kirigami. This is the application. We can see that it comes from the F-Droid repository KDE Android nightly builds, and we install it. Do you want to install? Yes. Google Play Protect says that it has never seen this application before. Scan app and install. Then we can open either from the F-Droid App Store or from the list of all installed applications. And it works the way we would expect. Okay, so what remains is again the rules for branches. If you're doing a merge request towards the master branch, then your signed APK will arrive here, F-Droid repository KDE Android nightly build. And if the merge request is towards one of the two branches that, in this case for Kirigami gallery, are configured, then it will also arrive in this F-Droid repository KDE Android release builds. Remember that we have in here two branches, 2504 and 2508 for Kirigami Gallery. And then let's see what this is. So there's an F-Droid publisher. Let's search for Kirigami. And it says that Kirigami Gallery branch is master. Where were we? So what it says in here is that we should do a merge request towards this file. Not this file. Towards this file. And for Kirigami Gallery, we should have what we have right now, which is branch is master, but also we should have release/25.08 repository stable releases, such that when a new merge request will be done towards the git branch release 2508, then a signed APK will be created by GitLab CI and also will be pushed towards the repository stable releases in the F-Droid. So this should be it. This is how to take a KDE application, graphical user interface application, that builds and runs correctly on Android. So first of all, make sure it builds correctly on Android. There are some very small QML applications that do not run on Android because they depend on a bit of Qt widgets code, such as the Qt QGUI application, for instance. So sometimes porting the application to not depend on Qt widgets such that it runs correctly on Android is a matter of very short merge request. So do that. And then once the application builds correctly on your Linux machine using KDE Builder, create a blueprint for KDE Craft. Make sure it builds correctly using KDE Craft on Linux. Then make sure that the KDE Craft blueprint for your application has the correct changes for Android. If something needs to be specified differently for the Android operating system, then build your graphical user interface application for using KDE Craft for Android AMD64. If that works correctly, it will generate an APK, do the steps specified in the procedure to create a signed APK, deploy that APK to your Android device or your Android emulator such as F-Droid, make sure it works correctly. Then you need to do 3 more changes. You need to make sure that in your Git repository of the graphical user interface application in .gitlab CI YML, there's this part, GitLab templates craft Android Qt 6 apks.yaml. This will just create GitLab CI jobs, which will create APKs which are not signed. At this point, you would probably want to download the build artifacts, so the APK for x86_64, sign that thing, deploy it to your Android or Android emulator, make sure it works correctly. And the next step would be to edit the APK signer projects.yaml and add branches and then a release branch. like this for Kirigami Gallery. At this point, when you're creating a merge request towards the master branch, the APK is generated using these craft_android GitLab CI jobs will be signed. You can download the build artifacts, the GitLab CI artifacts.zip, and get the x86-64 APK that's already signed, deploy it to your Android device, make sure it works correctly. And the final step would be this one, to edit the F-Droid publisher file. F-Droid publisher -projects.yaml. Also in here you will need to add your branches. So a part like this. Exactly these 3 lines in the case of Kirigami Gallery. Which means that when you're doing a merge request towards the Git master branch of your graphical user interface application, the Android APKs will be created and be signed and pushed to the F-Droid nightly repo. But then when you're creating a merge request towards one of these branches, then the GitLab CI will create the APK, sign them, and publish them to the KDE F-Droid release repository. Where is the F-Droid? F-Droid settings, and then under repositories, you can even add both repositories at the same time. But if you want to make sure that you're testing your application from the release builds, then enable the release builds and disable the nightly builds. If you want to test just your nightly build, do the opposite. Or maybe you can leave both enabled. I'm not sure how that works. And find the application. And in the combo box, choose between the 2 F-Droid repositories, KDE Android nightly builds and KDE Android release builds. The nightly build should provide a APK created from newer source code. And it's geared towards developers and testers. So this is it. This is how to publish a KDE application on the Android App Store named F-Droid. Thank you.